Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's Thrive in China Roundtable, where we are going to be talking about why companies in China should never underestimate the importance of solid Chinese accounting knowledge. Good financial management is vital to the success of any business anywhere around the world, but nowhere is it more important than for startups in China, where margins are often tighter and the risks of failure much higher than in more established countries. We've all heard the statistics that only 1 in 5 startups make it beyond 5 years, and that 80% of all startups fail. Now, why am I giving out this statistic about startups? Well, because when you arrive in China and you have a newly incorporated company, you are officially a startup. In terms of the company foundation, in terms of all of the administrative functions. You might have had a history of transactions running through China, but you are at the beginning of everything developing in terms of the foundation. Now, while the accuracy of these headline grabbing figures is up for debate, one thing is certain: of the startups that do fail, poor money management is a major reason why. And a recent survey by data and research company CB Insights found that almost 1/3 of startups fail due to running out of cash. And that's just one of the many surveys that draw a similar conclusion. No business in China wants to fall behind with their accounts, but with busy schedules, limited resources, it's not always possible to stay up to date. And for businesses in this position, outsourcing can certainly be an option. But before we get on the merits of what outsourced accounting can look like and why there are advantages to it, let's look exactly at what solid accounting process should entail. So let's look at getting to grips with your accounting in China. Now, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe once said that bookkeeping by double entry is among the finest inventions of the human mind. Every prudent master of a house should introduce it into its economy. Like Goethe, when we think of accounting, our minds usually go straight to bookkeeping, balance sheets, cash flow forecasts, the basics that every business should have covered. And it's true that these disciplines often dictate your growth strategy and the general strategic direction that you're planning on going in. But that's only one part of a solid accounting process. There are 3 other areas where it is really important. Or let me put it another way. There are 3 areas where I see the majority of companies making mistakes on, causing them to incur high penalties, difficulty in headcount retention, and definite issues with tax bureaus. So the 3 areas where you really need to focus on in China is payroll. If you're currently running your accounts through Excel or a similar software, doing the payroll each month can be a nightmare, particularly because of the complex formulas that are utilized to calculate housing fund and social insurance rates. Features are minimal and management can be time consuming, with users having to create manual pay slips, calculate the mandatory social insurance and housing fund, as well as then the personal income tax. That is also not easy because it is based on an accumulation of salary from month to month. And obviously there's a whole series of documentation that you need as a backup to keep and maintain from an administrative perspective. Now, a comprehensive accounting solution makes this a much less arduous task and also prevents you from making mistakes, particularly when there are adjustments and allowances that have to be made for the employees on a month-to-month basis. Now, all reporting, including pay slips, statements, payment confirmations, social insurance calculations, could actually be automated, running the monthly payroll from several hours to minutes, as long as obviously there are no adjustments. Obviously, once an individual has a salary adjustment or has allowances that have to be accounted for, this is manual labor that is required regardless. The second area where we see a lot of mistakes is procurement and sales. Now, sorry, and just to backtrack on point 1, which is payroll. The social insurance and housing fund aspect is critical and fundamental together with the income tax calculations. This is all centralized with the tax bureau in China. They are the ones that are checking that you are making the right calculations. Should you not be declaring the right base salaries? Should you actually not be declaring the right social insurance rates, housing fund rates, or not including the right rates because there are variances in the rates that you can choose for your organization? You have that ability to decide. It is really important to know what those formulas are and making sure you're doing it properly. Penalties can be severe, and particularly if you're under declaring, extremely severe. So that leads me to the procurement and sales. And rather than marrying up several stages manually, purchase orders, receipts, invoicing, and payment, a solid accounting solution should seamlessly bring these elements together along the supply chain. Now, one of the discoveries I had this morning when I was onboarding a client was he was saying, well, we'll collect all of the documents on an annual basis. And he was reflecting it on Hong Kong and how Hong Kong works. And I was explaining that actually management reports in China are produced on a monthly basis, which means that documents are required on a monthly basis to fill in all of the necessary transactions in terms of revenue, cost of sales, and general administrative expenses. He wasn't aware of this element. And he wasn't aware of also the timeliness, the timing that is required to be able to issue FAPIAOs, to be able to receive FAPIAOs, and how that can impact how your P&L looks like or your balance sheet looks like. So it is really important, whether you're procuring goods, whether you're selling goods or services, or you're procuring services, that you work out a schedule month to month that reflects when are you going to get all the documents together and collated together, when are you going to submit them to your accountant, what are the tax deadlines required, which means the management reports have to be produced before then, when are the tax declarations done, when is the tax payment made, and then doing a review with your accountant to make sure that should there be any adjustments required, you're doing it right there and then in the following month. So you're looking at revenue in detail, you're looking at cost in detail, you're looking at expenses in detail. And this all comes back to the procurement and sales. Now, another thing that needs to be kept in mind is that not only are your management reports done on a month-to-month basis, but you also have an audit at the year end. And the auditors will look at the supporting documents for each of the transactions that is running through the company, or they'll randomly select. And if you don't have the supporting documents on hand for those transactions, then you can get into difficulties. So everything needs to be maintained administratively in a sequenced rhythm and properly. The third area that is really important and that many people can't get their heads around is value-added tax. Now, China operates on a centralized invoicing system known as the golden tax system, which restricts companies to issue invoices on government certified software, pre-numbered invoices or /FAPIAOs and printers. And the issuance of approved VAT invoices in China is strictly controlled by the tax authorities. Pre-approved paper invoices, FAPIAOs, are provided by the golden tax system, meaning you purchase booklets of these from the tax bureau, and it enables the government to track VAT payments and compliance, and it provides proof of purchase of goods or services. It does not reflect on cash flow, though. And FAPIAOs are produced and distributed by the State Administration of Taxation in China, and they are then purchased by taxable businesses for actual use of service or trade transactions. Now, the tax authorities will determine in advance how many FAPIAOs a company is entitled to order and what their total value per FAPIAO is. You buy a paper FAPIAO sheet. Initially, when you start up in China, the value of that will be 10,000 RMB. Now, companies must produce the approved FAPIAOs on government supplied printers, which are electronically linked to the tax bureau. And this provides the government with a live feed of invoices that are produced. The tax due on FAPIAOs must be paid to the tax authorities at the month's end, irrespective of whether the customers have settled that invoice or not. Okay, as soon as it's issued, the tax needs to be settled based on the VAT on purchases that you have made, right? VAT payable per month is the output minus the input, which is what you've sold against what you've purchased. Now, the Chinese authorities, although they don't, and by authorities, I want to be specific, the Chinese tax bureaus, they can request documents, supporting documents, including general ledgers, VAT ledger, credit and debit notes, copy of invoices, both issued and received, in order to verify what your VAT payable is month to month. And managing such a process can be extremely time consuming. Now, I haven't even touched on the fact of e-fapiaos, which is a new thing that should be actually implemented throughout China within 2023. And there's also the issue of tracking e-fapiaos that are issued, printing them out so that they are part of your accounting books, the original accounting books, and making sure you've got all the supporting documentation that's around that. So what you need to think about is the fact that most foreign invested companies in China, when they start up their operations, they don't have dedicated expertise at their disposal to manage or even understand the complexities around value-added tax, let alone all the other taxes that are imposed, like profits tax, consumption tax, surtaxes on VAT, etc. Right? And even if they did, the amount of manual physical administrative work that is required and the time that needs to be dedicated to this, you're going to be spending more time doing that than actually getting your business up and running and acquiring new clients. So these three areas are definitely areas that can cause a lot of companies in their startup phase to veer off the path, especially when they start doing things themselves, or they are outsourcing, but they're outsourcing to the wrong providers. So I want to highlight what really are the advantages of outsourcing your finance work in the initial 3 to 5 years of your operation, and who are the right providers, and what should you be getting out of them. Okay, so obviously the advantage of outsourcing for the initial 3 to 5 years of operation is the time and resource that you will gain back that is put into your business. Okay, and I want to highlight 4 reasons why it's an advantage, as long as you're choosing the right providers. The first is the initial cost savings, because you don't need to maintain your accounting software in-house. You know you're going to be using an actual accounting software system through your provider, which means they've got the software subscriptions, whether it's cloud-based, giving you access so that you can view or amend things yourself, and giving you the training that you need to really understand the complex processes that are involved, right? This is not just for VAT. This is for all aspects around your finance, from payroll, social insurance and housing fund, through to how to trade, transact, what are the supporting documents that are needed, etc. Many businesses spend up to 5% of their revenue staffing and training their internal accounting department. These costs can be reduced by almost half if you initially outsource. So basically, if you think about the cost of a CFO that would start with you, you might not even have the budget for that initially. But if you look at the average cost of a CFO right now in a place like Shanghai versus initially outsourcing your accounts, you're cutting that down by more than 50% in a lot of instances. So what's more, you might also save money by avoiding the negative consequences of an accounting mistake, which can lead to fines, regulatory costs, loss of reputation with the various government bureaus, and accounting mishaps can cost you a lot more than the cost of bringing in an outsourced provider, even without the direct cost savings. One example I want to highlight is of a company who was a foreign investor in Shanghai who was in the F&B sector and was looking actually to sell his business to a large organization. And the fact that he was using a Chinese CPA firm to do the accounts. He never looked at the accounts. He never checked the accounts. His concern as a private entrepreneur was, how much cash do I have in my bank account and can I survive? He was not looking at the actual trade transactions flowing through or asking any questions whatsoever with his accountant. And when the company that was looking to acquire him did a due diligence on him, they gave up because the accounts were an absolute mess and they had no way of analyzing the business to understand the true value of the business. So this can be one of the downsides if you don't take care of the finance side of your business. The other area and the advantage of using an outsourced provider in the first 3 to 5 years of your startup in China is having more expertise on hand. So outsourcing puts the whole process in the hands of an expert, which means that when you are looking for an outsourced accounting provider, make sure that you are reviewing their skill set, understanding what type of clients are they dealing with? Is it similar industries? Do they relate then to the government policies related to those industries? What kind of accounting software system are they using? You know, there's a whole agenda that you should be asking these accounting providers so that you understand what value can they bring to you. Because in the end of the day, your accounting provider or even your accountant should be working with you to grow your business, and making sure that you are involved in decisions and that you have complete transparency and clarity over your financial statements. It's also important that they do it in the language that you're comfortable with. So, you know, number one is, do they speak English, right? And then you can also look for accounting firms that maybe speak French, German, other languages that might make you feel more comfortable. Now, by having this expertise and having people understand how the tax system works, how bookkeeping entries work, and can explain it to you so you have the concept in your mind, not only gives you greater focus and understanding on how to gear the business in a certain direction, but it allows you to focus more on the business than actually in the business. Because in your startup phase, what you're trying to do is make sure that you are increasing sales or purchases, depending on what your business model is, versus focusing, you know, even if you focus more than 50% of your time on administration, this is a wrong concept to have, because you should be spending more than 50% of your time on the business to grow it versus in the business to create that foundation. Now, this goes to show not just, you know, service providers like accountants, but it's also outsourcing to other third parties like marketing companies, etc., until you're big enough to build that in-house. Now, an expert in the field will not only ensure that your accounts are fully compliant according to PRC GAAP regulations, but most will also then prepare your tax returns for you, as well as handling all of the payroll functions, etc. So making your life much, much easier. Now, the third reason of why to outsource is to basically have more resources and support. And this entails having, you know, your small business as you're starting up and you're growing. You want to have more resources and support. So by outsourcing everything to a dedicated accounting service will give you those resources initially. If you just have one accountant and they're sick or on sick leave or on holiday, this will make your life difficult to hit certain deadlines, etc. And outsourcing obviously is critical in the first 3 to 5 years as you're building that foundation. Once you have the capital available, you can then build that expertise, that resource, and that support in-house. Now, many businesses find that this approach is far more cost-effective than employing in-house accountants. And you can also benefit then from the expertise and guidance. Now, most accounting providers should be advising you on cash flow management, procurement, trade transactions, sales transactions, marketing, inventory control, as well as internal risk management. They should be advising you on this. What accounting providers, outsourced accounting providers might not do is the actual analytical analysis that is required to study your business and grow your business, because that is something that should really be done with the strategic team in-house. The fourth reason of why to outsource your accounts is to have more integration and flexibility. Outsourced software can sit on top of a business's current accounting platform, but still use the business's own accounting platform as the system of record. So outsourced providers basically you can use their software system that they have purchased and invested in, or you purchase your own ERP system or accounting software system, and then the outsourced providers can use that. There's also this flexibility that you can also say that your accounting service provider is a virtual CFO accountant. You can also say, no, I have the requirement that they must come to my office 1 to 2 days a month that we can do a review. So the accounting provider should be flexible. And this is also something what you should be reviewing. Is this something that's important for you? Do you need that? Or are you okay doing things over Zoom? We have certain clients that their strong point is not finance. So they need more hand-holding, and it's always easier to do that face-to-face than over Zoom calls. Last but not least, I just want to finish off today's presentation with a quote that I created. If you don't have the time to educate yourself on PRC GAAP, accounting standards, or tax regulations, then outsource to the experts until you do have that knowledge. So don't just accept the headache of keeping on top of the books as part and parcel of running your business. Look to improve your process, free up valuable resources Save money by outsourcing every aspect of your company so that you can focus on your business versus in the business, right? This doesn't mean that you should be turning a blind eye. I hope that has not been your takeaway today. The idea is that somebody else is doing the work who has that expertise level and can educate you on the things that you need to know about setting up a system process around your finances, around your tax, so that at some point you build that in-house. The goal of Woodburn, for example, is not that our clients are long-term with us for 20 years. Our goal is actually that we train and educate our clients within 3 to 5 years so that we can graduate them to building that in-house team. Now, I would love to know what your biggest takeaway from today was. Please do let me know. It's always helpful for future presentations. If you are interested, and I was just mentioning this to the client this morning, if you are interested in educating yourself on market entry into China, but specifically on operating and maintaining a company in China, I'm not sure if everybody is aware, but we do have a YouTube channel that houses over 100 webinar recordings, all related to doing business in China. So if, for example, you want to educate yourself on VAT, we have about 3, 4, 5 videos specific to that. So if you go to our website, there is the YouTube icon at the top right-hand corner. You can click on it. It goes straight to our channel, and you can find a whole series of of educational videos where you can get a foundation on how all of this works. Those videos are invaluable. It's just a matter of taking the time to review them, writing down questions if you have them, and then reaching out to us. If you have questions in relation to this topic, don't hesitate to reach out. No questions have popped in thus far. So just to reflect, if you do ask questions in the meantime, how can you work with me or how can you work with Woodburn? We provide all administrative services for China and Hong Kong incorporated companies. So everything from trademark registrations all the way through to the full outsourced solution of accounting, tax, payroll. We can also help you to recruit for your own in-house finance teams. We can help with tax advisory, profit repatriation strategies, etc. And if you're interested to learn more about how to outsource your books in China, you can most certainly have a conversation. We can have a 15-minute pain point discovery call where we learn what your pain points are in China and see if we can help. If we can help, we can then extend that phone call to another 30 minutes to really get down to the nitty-gritty of what you need. And if you're interested, you can email me at Christina@woodburnglobal.com. Just to finish off our upcoming roundtable topics. So next week, we're going to be talking about customer retention in China, online licensing, pricing, office spaces, ignoring the competition, and again, talking a little bit about outsourcing bookkeeping functions and how that might benefit for you. I hope today's video has helped. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you've got any questions. I look forward to hearing from you very soon. Take care and goodbye.